Basics of Metals and Steel by me, Grant Quasabart. Sustainability and the history of steel. Steel's material properties make it the ultimate sustainable construction material, both in terms of its material properties and the credentials of steel-framed buildings. Its superior strength-to-weight ratio means a little steel goes a long way, giving architects complete flexibility to innovate and create new, exciting buildings that are a pleasure to live and work in. A little bit of history here for you. The development of steel can be traced back 4,000 years to the beginning of the Iron Age. Not a couple of eras here. The era of the iron taught us that at very high temperatures, iron begins to absorb carbon, making it stronger. And then the birth of the steel industry took place in the late 19th century and spent over $1 billion on steel fixtures. And then oxygen steel making. The majority of the global steel production, about 66%, is now produced in basic oxygen facilities. The material of steel alloys is steel that is alloyed with a variety of elements in total to improve its mechanical properties. Production of steel structure shapes. Steel comes in many shapes to suit a specific job. Some shapes are angle iron, beams, rebar, channel, and tubing. Cast steel. Cast steel usually refers to normal carbon steel and alloy steel, or called steel casting with carbon content lower than 2%. And then cold work steel. Cold working refers to the process of strengthening a metal by the plastic deformation. And then opening web joists. I just posted a picture on this one to help describe it a little bit better. So it's just a basic steel joist, but they got more strength with the web design that they put in it. And then joining steel members. Many steel members are connected by welds or rivets and bolts. Details for framing. Typical connections. Most steel frame connections use angle plates or keys as traditional elements between the members being connected, stabilizing the building frame. There are types of building frames to help stabilize the building. A couple of them are braced frame, creates stable triangular configurations within the naturally unstable rectangular frame. Another one is eccentrically braced frame. The ends of the diagonals braces are offset. And then moment resisting frame, stronger connections on beams for more lateral stability, and shear walls, structured with shear connections. Then we got the shear connections and moment connections, fully restrained or sufficiently rigid that geometrically virtually unchanged under normal load. Partially restrained are not as rigid as FR connections, not unless they possess a depending and predictable moment resisting that can stabilize a building frame. And then simple connections, also known as shear connections, capable of unrestrained rotation under normal loading connections. Construction process. The fabricator's job is to deliver the construction site steel components that are ready to be assembled. The erector is responsible for assembling into a frame on the building site the steel components. Floor and roof decking. The permanent floors and roof decks must be made with incombustible materials and architectural structural steel. Steel members will remain exposed in the finished building and a high standard. Finishes for light gauge steel framing. Any exterior or interior finished material that is used in wood light frame construction may be applied to light gauge steel construction. Wood is fastened by nails while steel is fastened by screws. Metals are found in nature as an ore and are refined by heat and reactant materials. Some terms and concepts here, light gauge steel, cold formed material framing, and non-structural material framing. Light gauge steel. Light gauge steel is a thin piece of steel not designed to hold a heavy load. Light gauge steel construction is very similar to wood frame construction in principle. The wooden framing members are replaced with thin steel sections. Cold form metal framing. The manufacture of cold form steel production occurs at room temperature using rolling or pressing. The strength of the element used for design is usually governed by buckling. Unlike light gauge steel, cold form framing can withstand more of a stress load. Can be found in walls or trusses. Structural metal framing. Non-structural metal framing is metal framing that doesn't hold a true load from the structure. An example of this would be metal studs in buildings or ceiling rafters. More terms and concepts here for you. Flame cutting torch. A cutting torch is used to cut a steel pipe and other steel objects. Oxy-fuel welding and oxy-fuel cutting are processes that use fuel gases and oxygen to weld and cut metals, respectively. Plasma cutting. Plasma cutting is a process that cuts through electrically conductive materials by means of an accelerated jet of hot plasma. Typically, materials cut with plasma torch include steel, aluminum, brass, and copper, although other conductive metals may be cut as well. And the last one is laser cutting. Laser cutting is a technology that uses a laser to cut materials and is typically used for industrial manufacturing applications. Laser cutting works by directing and output of high power laser, most commonly through optics. All right, more term concepts. Welding, joined together by heating the surface to the point of melting using a blowtorch, electric arc, or other means. Types of welding is MIG welding, TIG welding, arc welding, and gas or oxyacetylene welding. Brazing. Brazing joins two metals by heating and melting a filler alloy that bonds to the two pieces of metal and joins them. Properly brazed joints can be stronger than pieces being joined, but are not as strong as welded joints. Soldering. Soldering is also used to join electrical components. The joint is not necessarily strong or structural, but electrically connects the parts with conductive solder. Some more terms and concepts here. Galvanic protection. So the cathodic protection part of this is a technique used to control the corrosion of a metal surface by making it the cathode of an electrochemical cell. And then hot dip. Galvanizing is a form of galvanization. It is the process of coating iron and steel with a layer of zinc by immersing the metal in a bath of molten zinc at a temperature of around 840 degrees Fahrenheit. This process helps protect the metal from weathering and corrosive elements. More terms and concepts. Electrogalvanizing. Coatings are created by applying zinc to steel sheets and strip by electro deposition, similar to sheet galvanizing. The operation is continuous and coating thickness is minimal. Mechanical galvanizing is a room temperature process in which zinc coatings are applied to fasteners without electricity and without heat. And then just my reference slide here, I got some of my stuff online, and then I got most of the information off of the book.